Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to talk about something very important. And that is there are more psychopaths and narcissists. And others like them that roam this earth than most people know or believe that exist. And I think the wording believe that exist is very important. You see, when talking about the many things that are going on this earth, if you speak the typical news talking points, or if you go against who the news tells you to go against, then everything is okay with most people you are talking to. But if you start to explain simple verifiable things that you have noticed, with not only those that you are told to go against, but also those that are going against this person or people, common sense things showing overt and covert narcissism and evil to the core psychopathy, it's like their brain shuts off. And they have a blank stare as if they are now ignoring you. They may have been the one to bring up the subject. And you shared facts. Of not picking sides, but explaining of real inconsistencies that you have noticed and that cause you to be concerned. And this weird blank stare happens because people love to be told and fed the idea of what evil really is about and what evil really looks like, instead of what it really is. Why am I talking about this? Well, another unbelievable news story happened. But even though it's unbelievable, it happened. Allegedly. Allegedly. 4 people. That are basically a family. That are the real-life version of Strangers the movie with a twist. Were arrested and charged with abduction and abuse. The 4th person is a 16-year-old girl that will also be charged as an adult. There were some news stories that had her pictured along with her psychopathic family. And others that left it out. I think because of her age. So I'm leaving it out too. I will put a link to this news story in the description box below. What allegedly happened was they abducted an 18-year-old relative, who they handcuffed to the bed. And they beaten him so badly. He had a brain bleed, along with broken ribs. And was so malnourished he only weighed 70 pounds when he ended up at the hospital. And from what it looks like the abduction and kidnapping charges are because they prevented the victim from leaving the home. And they made up some story about the victim leaving home when he turned 18 and then mysteriously showed back up at home beaten and in bad shape. So much so they drove him to the hospital. But the victim told the doctors what had happened. That he was handcuffed to the bed and beaten by the entire family. So there is a lot going on here. First and foremost, I hope this young man that had to go through this, I hope he will recover. It looks like he has a long road ahead of him. Brain bleeds are very, very serious. Along with broken ribs and being malnourished. He's going to need all of the help and prayers he can get. And I'm praying God takes care of him and heal him. But what about these monsters behind me? And the devil demon 16-year-old girl that was a part of this as well? Well, it sounds like to be that this was a narcissistic psychopathic family on steroids. And the young man that was beaten was the scapegoat. And all of these jerkball raccoon fart entities likely took great pleasure at ruining this young man's life. Now the news story is a little hazy regarding how he's related to these people. Is he a son? Is he a stepson? I don't know. But I'm sure they enjoyed abusing him. And this was likely not the first time. This young man was likely mentally, emotionally and physically abused since he was a young child. But they were likely careful about the physical abuse when he was under 18. But the second he turned 18, they thought they could abuse him and no one would find out. And this goes back to love. The love for the abuser parent or family member or whoever they are. Thinks we have for them. And oftentimes we do have love. And that's nothing to be ashamed of if you do have love or if you don't have love. Though my narcissist mother really wasn't physically abusive towards me. It was more emotional and psychological. And turning people against me. And ruining every avenue of my life. She did train my golden child brother to beat me. as she could easily blame me for so-called aggravating my brother and saying we were just fighting and I somehow started it. So she would get her fix to see me being physically abused. And she could keep her hands clean. Now though I loved my mother, it doesn't take away from what she was and what she did. What my mother did was rotten to the core and it was evil. And she knew what she was doing. Because she had a plan built into what she was doing. Also she would never be blamed. And I believe this sick family tortured this young man since he was a child. And it never stopped. But they were careful. And remember me talking about narcissists overplaying their hand? Narcissists and psychopaths will get away with so much stuff their entire lives. And have their lies believed. That they will step way over the line. Such as ending someone's life. Or holding someone against their will and torturing them. And they likely realized that this young man was about to die. So they took him to the hospital. And they likely were coaching him in the car the entire ride to the hospital. Telling him, now you don't want to see us get into any trouble. So you have to say it was an accident. Or you got robbed and jumped by strangers you don't know. They probably used love and the love he had for his family to try to get him to stick to the bull crap story. But somewhere this young man got the courage to tell the hospital staff what really happened to him. You see, there are a lot of families out there like this. A lot. But many are a bit more careful than this family. Because narcissists try to keep things to a minimum with the physical violence and keep as much of it to a mental emotional game. Because that's a game they can possibly play until the end of their lives. But some families like this one get ahead of themselves and they overplay their hand. Simply because they've gotten away with not just tons of BS their entire life, but tons of abuse against this young man when he was a child more than likely. And more than likely each and every time he covered for them. And they probably thought that this situation would be no different. So they overplayed their hand. But how this ties into the intro or the beginning of this video is that most people think in a very narrow box when it comes to the world events. And they love to live in an emotionally safe world where they believe they know who the bad guys and bad gals are. And who the good guys and the good gals are. And they think that these so-called good people are trying to save them from the evil out there. When each and every time they do, they seemingly make things worse. To where the golden children of society don't dare to speak up and pretend they don't see it. Because seeing the likely truth is too scary and painful for them to look at and admit. And that is people like this evil family don't just come from farm communities. Or from a working class city neighborhood. But they also can be found amongst the rich and the elites of society. You see, what people need to understand about narcissism and narcissistic abuse is it's the art of sleight of hand. The goal is to accuse the victim of what the narcissist or narcissists are really guilty of. And to turn everyone against the real true victim. Or in some cases a lesser intelligent narcissist that is in the destruction path of a smarter more cunning narcissist. Their goal is to write the rules for the victim to follow and say they aren't following them. But the narcissists that write such rules not only don't follow them, they break these rules openly and overtly. All the while the golden children of society turn a blind eye and pretend they don't see such happenings. Simply put, the world we live in is in many ways an extension of our narcissistically abusive homes of origins. And there are people like this, with the only difference of having more money and more power and more influence that run the show. You see, narcissists and psychopaths love things right as they are. I was recently watching a few narcissistic abuse content creators that are over 100,000 subscribers. And even they said they noticed their channel stalled with in regards to their growth. And even they thought the same thing that I believe. Narcissists don't want the average person to understand how this all works. Because if you understand how it all works, it's like understanding the trick of the Wizard of Oz. And eventually the game will collapse. They want you to look at news stories like this and think, it's so out of the norm. And that people aren't like this. When these nut jobs are more common than you might think. And if you realize that, then you will start to understand. People like this exist in all walks of life. Even those that dictate the pace of society. Simply put, psychopaths and narcissists are greater in number than what most people think. And it's getting to be this way. Because they are raising each new generation with narcissistic thoughts and ideals and surrounding them by every evil they can from the moment they start to enter the world outside of their home. That is if they come from a good home. You see, though there is a possible genetic component to becoming a narcissist or to becoming a psychopath. If you can gaslight someone early on to go along with narcissism, or if you traumatize them enough when they are young, those that dictate the pace of society know that you will have a better shot at creating more narcissists and psychopaths. But why would someone want to do that, James? This is a question usually from people that don't know how evil works. Well, they, whoever they might be, not only want to do such a thing, they get fuel and energy by doing such a thing. Much like a vampire loves turning normal everyday people into sick twisted vampires just like them. It's that simple. Sometimes the vampire likes to end someone's life and feed on their pain as they are losing their life. While with some others, they enjoy the process of turning them into a miserable vampire just like they are. And the narcissists that dictate society don't want you to know that. Because then you will see the game for what it is. I can look at what is being pushed in society right now on most of your news stations is the same formula that our narcissists used against us. To turn everyone against us. Now, I'm not saying who they are trying to turn you against aren't narcissists either. They very well might be. But you have to remember, narcissists will go after other narcissists. They do it all the time and they do it every day. But it's safer to live in a world where we aren't looking at it like that. It's safer to say they are good and they are bad. They are trying to protect me and they are trying to destroy me. This thinking makes people feel safe and makes them feel better. And I think the reason why these people, even when they bring up such topics, their faces go blank when someone pulls back the layers and goes over facts, is because if they have to face the facts, that means they have to look at their own creation of becoming a golden child and at bare minimum a narcissist light. Because in the home of the narcissist, if you don't go along with the gaslighting and the false narrative, you will be the one that might be next to be slated for abuse. And that is what created our golden child brothers and sisters. Because they had to stick to what they knew. Because they were scared to do otherwise. And I think most people in the world are in the same boat. And as for the narcissists and psychopaths, they want you to think. People like these donut farts are rare and uncommon. When they know the truth, they walk amongst you every single day. And they are in all areas of life. All the way up to those that dictate the pace of society. Down to those that write the false narrative we are told to believe of what is happening in society. There are more psychopaths and narcissists than most people think. Well, that's all I have for today. Please subscribe if you haven't. And if you have, recheck it. Because you know how things work here. Please try to push videos up like this by commenting, liking and sharing. Though narcissists don't like messages like this, let's still try to get it out anyways. With that said, I do hope your day is blessed. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.